Hey, it's Christine from Storyworthy. Today on the show, comedian Greg Baldwin talks about how meth turned into the best thing that ever happened to him.
I have a bag of meth in my suit pocket, and I think I do real good on the interview, but there's a hole in my pocket in my suit. And so I'm at ABC Broadcasting, which is owned by Disney, and a bag of meth falls out of the hole of my pant leg in his office of the general manager in the office. And we're walking out, and the general manager reaches down, he sees the meth, he grabs it, he picks it up, holds it in front of my face, and he says, "What's this?" And I'm like, oh my God. I panicked, right? So what did I do? I snatched it out of his hand. And I said, "Vitamins."
Today on the show, comedian Greg Baldwin talks about how doing meth turned into the best thing that ever happened to him. Stay close.
Hey, my name's Greg Baldwin, and you're listening to the amazing Storyworthy.
Welcome to Storyworthy. My name is Christine Blackburn, and I'm coming to you from Los Angeles, California. Whether you're a longtime fan of the show of almost 11 flipping years, or you're brand new to the show, welcome to Storyworthy. Now, I hope you guys enjoyed the story last week by Wayne Fetterman. Fetterman is always, what can I say? He's Fetterman. He's amazing. And now he's written this new book, The History of Stand-Up, that I really like. In fact, Greg, did you see this book by chance?
I haven't seen it yet, but I listened to part of the episode. It looks amazing.
It really is. And it's not that thick, right? It's not that thick, but it is very thorough. And he talks all the way from when comedy started with a guy named Artemis Ward, yeah. And he goes all the way up until the pandemic and even opening up, trying to do drive-in theaters and stuff like that. So it's very comprehensive. I can't see it not being like text now, for stand-up comedy, because it's just written so well. And coming from him, who has been a comedian over 30 years, it's like you could trust the information, as it were. Anyway, Fetterman was on the show last week. We talked about his new book, and we also talked about his thing with ventriloquists. And what was funny about that is I told him from the very start, that is freaky. I told him. That's what I think. And I'm not the only one, Greg. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Dolls, there's the hinge, they move that lever. They're creepy is the bottom line. And so anyway, at the end of the day, and you guys still go back and listen to Fetterman, but just let me tell you, the end of the story is that he realizes that they're really creepy. I mean, that's the story. And I'm like, I told you that when you first brought up the doll. And then he goes, it's not a doll, it's a dummy. Anyway, you guys go back, listen to Fetterman last week, but not today, because I'm here with another fabulous comedian who I've never met before. So this is really nice to meet a new person, Greg Baldwin. And, you've got an extensive comedy career as well. And today you bring forth a topic, meth turned into the best thing that ever happened to me. And I honestly have never heard anybody say that before. Mm-hmm. I know people hit rock bottom, but I thought with meth, they usually end up dead, Yeah.
A lot, it's a lot of, one of my comedy mentors and somebody that has helped me become a good, he had told me, he's an old school comedian, and he said, you should just avoid all the drug stuff, because he said, your real talent is you're so likable on stage, and I can see you being a TV host and this and that. But you know what? It's like, it's my story, and it's like, what am I going to talk about? And I have to talk about these things. And, a lot of my comedy, I discuss things that normally people would never, ever, ever talk about. And those are the things that I try to talk about. And meth addiction, and I want to say this, when you think of a meth addict, right, you see those pictures, the before and the after, and you think of trailers and people in poor neighborhoods and, bad people. the teeth and criminals and stuff like that. I grew up in a good family. My parents are still together. No major trauma, besides, there was one thing, but I was doing drugs before this thing happened. But I graduated college. I worked for CBS. And so there's nothing, I think, and I want to say this because, meth is a topic that, probably a lot of people don't talk about, but there's something different in my brain, when it comes to mind altering substances. And it started off with sugar and things that give me pleasure. I can't control it. I abuse it until it doesn't work anymore. And, I don't want this to be a whole sobriety podcast, but I want you to understand a little bit about what happened to me so you can understand who I am as a person. But, I tried meth when I was dating a girl. I came back from Mexico. She was at my house, and I had snorted speed before, and I've done a lot of other drugs, but I never tried meth, smoking it. And I found a meth pipe on her. And I thought to myself, I'm like, oh my God, I'm dating a junkie, right? That's what I thought. And so,
how did you even know it was a meth pipe? Because I wouldn't even know what that looks. In other words, how does that look different than a weed pipe?
So it's like a little black glass round bubble pipe. And I'm not sure where I knew that from. I've probably seen it around, but I thought the same thing. Terrible people smoke meth. I would never do that.
Yeah. Now, hang on. I don't want you to talk about your story just yet. First of all, okay. Yeah. I know that you are a good friend of Ant, and yes. Ant's been on the show not that long ago, a couple months ago, yeah. And Ant has had a fantastic career, as you know, but he's also had the extreme pitfalls. I think with Ant, it was alcohol, right?
Yeah, alcohol and meth also.
Oh, wow. I can't remember if I don't think we talked about it. I think I did meth this morning and I forget. No. Yeah.
I don't want to tell you a story, so I don't know. I don't know.
Well, anyway, the point is Ant is an amazing guy, an amazing comedian. And it's interesting how both of you could juggle it all. Because for a time you did, right? I mean, for a time you had all the balls in the air as an addict for a minute, right?
When I was drinking and doing other drugs, I juggled the ball and worked for CBS for a long time. But when the meth hit, it was a fast decline.
I see.
Very fast decline.
Yeah. I saw that, you have a podcast, you guys. Greg has a fabulous podcast called the Second Chances Podcast, which really is about giving people second chances, and not just with drugs and alcohol, but you've had on all sorts of interesting people. You had on Alonzo Bowden. I thought that was interesting. What was his thing? Do you remember? Because I didn't hear it yet.
He talked about recovery and about being a comedian. He talked about his journey on overcoming his obstacles in life, and it was fascinating.
But was it alcohol?
I believe so. I don't want to tell his story. So
no, I know. I'm not forcing you to tell anybody's story. I'm just saying, I'm looking at all these people. Like, I know Amy Dresner. She was a full-on heroin junkie.
Yeah.
Her book, by the way, is stunning. I absolutely adored her book. What's it called again? I'm sorry.
I forget, but she was a guest. I was a guest too, yeah.
Yeah, I saw that. And then you also had Jason Stewart and Willie Mack, and you had Fielding Edlow. And then you're going to have me. Of course, you have to have me.
Of course.
I haven't had a drug addiction. However, I've overcome a lot. And, definitely one of the big things was, as my audience knows, that I was in the Peace Corps. And while I was in the Peace Corps, I got cancer, or I had cancer, and then it became apparent when I was in the Peace Corps. So it's kind of dramatic. And it is. It's dramatic, right? I have a solo show. So, it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. But my audience knows,
I was just going to say, I didn't mean to cut you off. Why don't we just set it up now? You could be my next guest. How's that?
Yeah. This should be a story-worthy / second chances have melded together to create a seamless podcast of survival, struggle, and fighting your demons. Join us next week. No, but But all I'm saying is that I have gone through something that made me realize, oh, wait a second, I am supposed to entertain or, be a comedian, since I had been doing tons of comedy, but I just never really believed in myself. I was more afraid of coming to LA and failing than going to a third world country. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was willing to go live without electricity and water because I just was so afraid. Anyway, my point is, that kind of gave me my second chance at life, as it were. So I'm just asking, in your podcast, Second Chances Podcast, does anybody stick out? Is there any odder stories besides alcohol and meth and drugs? I mean, all of that's interesting, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So I've had some interesting guests on. One that kind of dealt with drugs, though, was Carney Wilson, who's she was her father was Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys, and of course she's a huge recording artist as well.
Amazing,
Wilson Phillips. But I had her on, and she told the story how her father was trying to give her heroin when she was 16, and growing up in that dysfunctional environment.
Wow.
And it was just fascinating. And then I had on a guy that was sentenced to life for murder. He was involved in a drive-by shooting. He was in a gang, and he got out, and he started this nonprofit that helps inmates transition back into society, and he dedicated his life to doing that.
Wow.
And so, I'll tell you, and it's probably you can identify with this. The reason I enjoy doing the podcast so much is I love interviewing interesting people with great stories. And because I've gotten a second chance in life, I want to bring inspiration and hope. The whole purpose, I started the podcast with Ant. Now my host is
Jimmy Shin.
Yeah, Jimmy Shin, who I'm going to tell a story about in a little bit. But the whole purpose of starting this podcast was to bring hope and inspiration to the world.
Mm-hmm. And what it comes down to is who you give your time to, and what you take in with your eyes and your ears and your space. Like, where are you? And all of that. The clock is just ticking so much faster than we can even imagine. And so you're filling it with good stuff. I love it.
Yeah, it's an amazing, and it's life is incredible.
Yeah,
it's difficult, it's fun, it's hard, it's there's a lot of questions we don't know the answers to. Why do bad things happen to good people?
Because probably something you did.
Maybe.
I'm kidding. Well, listen, I'm excited to hear your story. Thank you so much for bringing it. How meth turned into the best thing that ever happened to me. Unbelievable. But before we get to your story, I wanted to remind everybody that we are playing Story Smash, the storytelling game show, every Friday night. Yeah, that's right. Every Friday night, 7 p.m. Pacific time on Facebook and YouTube. And you just go on to Facebook. You can either search Story Smash, or you're probably already a fan of the show, Story Worthy, over there on Facebook. And anyway, or just search my name, Christine Blackburn. Story Smash is going to come up. You can watch it. There's no tickets. It's free. And Greg Baldwin, I think you would be a fabulous guest.
I would love to be.
It is damn funny. I'm excited to play. I'm excited to be back at the Improv, which is going to happen pretty soon here. And then I have to make the decision, am I still going to do the Zoom thing? Because let's face it, I make more money at the Improv, and who doesn't want to be live?
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll figure it out. But in the meantime, you guys follow Story Smash over on Instagram at Story Smash. And then also head over to storysmashshow.com for all the exciting Story Smash news. And don't forget to follow Story Worthy, blah, 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 blah. All right, you guys, he's here right now. Greg Baldwin, he is a comedian, as you know, and an actor and a voiceover artist. And he's performed at comedy clubs throughout Los Angeles. And you were a member of the Actors Theater of San Francisco. How long were you part of the Actors Theater?
Oh, I think like 3 or 4 years.
Isn't doing plays like the most fun thing in the world?
It's incredible.
Isn't it so fun? The whole process.
The whole process is amazing. And I hope to go back to it someday. It's incredible. It's so fun. It's, but stand up is a step above that because you're by yourself. But I get a mini versions of that. It's a different art form. But the live audience is just,
it really is. And it's also the camaraderie that you form with the people that are working around you. You know, you get a group of actors. It's like, oh, that's right. This is my tribe. I know these people, you know, of artists, even if you just say artists, because whether it's the director or whoever wrote it, and you just see the process. And yeah, it's really nice. And the good news is, Greg, you can do that at any age. You know that.
Of course.
Like my dad did a ton of plays between the ages of 62 and 82. My dad did a ton of plays, you know, and of course he played every character like an Irish priest, but that's not important. Anyway, yeah, I love theater. And like I said, Greg does have a podcast called Second Chances Podcast, and you are a co-host with Jimmy Shin, and you talk to comedians about their second chances in life. Heroic, inspiring, true life stories from the people who are actually living them. And you've done a lot of big voiceovers. I just want to mention real quick, you know, you've done voiceovers for like Volkswagen and CBS Radio, Kenneth Cole, Vans, PlayStation, iHeartMedia. And that's a tough gig to get, isn't it?
Yeah, you know, I kind of fell into it because I worked at CBS. So I just, they would call me in. What happened to the production guy at CBS? I walked in one day, and I was a member of the Actors Theater at the time, and so I threw $100 down on his in his studio, and I said, I want to learn how to do voiceovers. And he's like, done. And so he just started putting me on all these commercials and helping me and created a demo. So I fell into it. Yeah,
you lucky guy, because that's a tough racket because nobody ever quits. You know, people keep doing it.
Very tough.
Anyway, you guys can follow Greg over on Twitter at Real Greg Baldwin, and also at his website, Real Greg Baldwin, and also on secondchances.tv. Who has all the regular Greg Baldwins? Who's that asshole, you know?
Oh, the other Greg Baldwin?
I guess it's not that uncommon.
No. He's a voice actor, and he does all these video games, and people reach out to me all the time. You know, wanting signed autographs of the character he does, and he shows up way ahead of me on IMDb. So my goal, and if you search Greg Baldwin comedian, I come up first, but if you search Greg Baldwin, he comes up first. So my goal is to knock him down and become the first searching Greg Baldwin.
That is hilarious. That is so funny. Oh my gosh.
I'll say one quick story. So my friend is a producer, and he put me in a couple commercials in the past, and he was coming down to LA to do casting. And it was the casting day, and he calls me. He's like, "Where are you?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And he goes, "Yeah, my agent set up your audition with Greg Baldwin. They set up the audition with the other Greg Baldwin."
Unbelievable. I mean, I guess it's not that hard to believe because, you know, you're both here. You're both in the industry. You're a voiceover actor too. Mm-hmm. That's wild. So what's your name in SAG or after or whatever?
So SAG, it's Greg Baldwin, but I haven't paid my dues, so I'm SAG eligible, and I've been doing a lot of and they haven't made me do the must join yet, which is because I've done a ton of projects. They haven't made me do the must join, so I haven't had to pay my dues, but I guess I'll probably have to be Greg L. Baldwin.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, you probably will, or maybe they'll let you put Real Greg Baldwin. That'd be kind of funny. All right, you guys, wherever you are, put your hands together for Greg Baldwin. Yay!
Thank you. So, you know, I'll just tell you, like I said before, you know, crystal meth users aren't bad people, you know, not all of them, you know, and addiction. Like when I was a little kid, I never in a million years would have ever imagined that I'd be a drug addict, you know, and that my life would fall apart. And so, like I said, great family upbringing and everything, but, you know, and I met that girl and I tried the meth, and here's what happened. The first time I smoked meth, it was the greatest feeling. Imagine the thing in your life that gives you the most pleasure that you've ever had, skydiving or eating chocolate or sex or whatever it is that gives you the most physical pleasure, and times that by 100. That's what I got from doing crystal meth.
That just doesn't seem possible in a way. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, first of all, how old were you? Could you just tell us that? And a girl had meth. I mean, in other words, obviously it has escalated to that because obviously you've already had all the alcohol and you've had all this and that and this and that. And then all of a sudden, how old are you when you're with that girl?
Probably around 30, 31, somewhere around there.
So you weren't a kid by any means.
No. Mm-mm. And I was working at CBS, very, very successful, doing, radio sales, and was really successful, making great money. And I was partying all the time. I smoked weed every day, I drank, and, did ecstasy and coke on the weekends and stuff like that. But what crystal meth did was it expedited the process. It was like a carpool lane to my bottom. And I went from working at CBS to 118 pounds, missing teeth, living out of my car in about 3, 4, 5 years, somewhere in that period. I'll tell you one story about my usage. I just couldn't stop, and I started using it, after the first time, I just started using it on weekends, and slowly but surely what happens is I can't get out of bed. I can't function. I can't have conversations. I can't do anything unless I use crystal meth. And so I moved down. I was supposed to go to work. This is in the Bay Area. I moved down to LA to follow my dreams and try to run away from the crystal meth. And I was supposed to go to work for K-Rock. That fell through, but I had a job interview with ABC Broadcasting. And I went on the job interview. And I had been doing meth, and I had a bag of meth. Don't ask me why I didn't leave it in the car, but I had a bag of meth in my pocket.
In your suit. So you're in a suit. I'm just want to get a picture of this interview. Yeah. It's obviously a big deal. And but by the way, you're using meth. You're an addict, but you can't stop, right? Is that all true?
Correct.
So you have to be a normal person now and go to work. So you go to an interview. It's a big deal. You're in a suit. And then what?
I have a bag of meth in my suit pocket, and I think I do real good on the interview, but there's a hole in my pocket in my suit. And so I'm at ABC Broadcasting, which is owned by Disney, and a bag of meth falls out of the hole of my pant leg in his office of the general manager in the office. And we're walking out, and the general manager reaches down, he sees the meth, he grabs it, he picks it up, holds it in front of my face, and he says, "What's this?" And I'm like, oh my God. I panicked, right? So what did I do? I snatched it out of his hand. And I said, "Vitamins." And he looked at me and he's like, oh my God, okay. Let me escort you to the door. And I'm looking at, we can see each other right now. I'm looking at your face. When I tell addicts this story, everybody laughs. When I tell non-addicts this story, that's the look of shock and unbelievable. But I snatched it out of his hand. I said, "Vitamins." And he's like, "Okay, let me escort you out the door." I got my meth back. And he escorted me out the door, and I walked out that door. And I can tell you right now, I have never felt as low as a human being as at that point. I was so devastated. And I'm like, oh my God, my career's over. My life is over. And I guarantee you, this general manager, when anybody says, "Oh, I had this crazy interview," right? He's still telling this story. "Oh yeah, I had this guy come in and drop crystal meth," but it was devastating. And you would think, that would be something that would wake up a normal person to get them to stop. But I used another 2 years after that.
Oh my God. Let me ask you, when he picked it up, it's like a regular size baggie, and it's white powder. I'm not even sure what it looks like.
It looks like crystals. It's clear. It's not like cocaine. Not that everybody knows what cocaine looks like in a bag, but it looks like a little crystal rocks. And he knew it was drugs. He's no dummy.
And that's why you have to use that glass bubble pipe, because you have to heat it so hot, right?
Yeah, correct. And it melts, and then the smoke comes up, and you smoke, and and it creates this feeling of it's the best feeling in the world. And
smoking doesn't seem like bad or whatever. It's not like you're putting a needle in your arm.
Yeah.
But it's the same. But it doesn't seem like it's the same.
It is bad. So when you snort crystal meth, it gets you really speedy and awake, but when you smoke it, it gets you very high and euphoric, and it has a different effect. And I'll tell you, even at the end when I got sober, it took me another 2 years. I ended up 118 pounds, missing teeth, living out of my car, lost my career. And
why do you get so thin? Because you spend all your money on meth and you don't buy food?
No, what happens is when you smoke crystal meth, it releases an exorbitant amount of dopamine in your brain, which tells you that everything's okay. So your brain isn't telling you signals that your body needs food or water. So you don't have to eat, or, you don't have that feeling of hunger. So because your brain is telling you that everything's great.
Wow. I had no idea. That is so powerful. I know you don't eat when you're snorting cocaine. At least when I did that stuff, we didn't eat, but that was more, I thought it was always because you didn't want it to like kill your buzz, as it were.
Yeah. Yeah. It's different. It's just so powerful. And, you know, and listen, not many people come back from it.
Well, that's the thing. That's why I don't think you really hear about it so much, because people don't come back from it.
Yeah.
So anyway, I want to hear about this girl though. So you're 31 years old and you go on like a regular date with her, or how long have you known her?
No, so I met her through drugs and through friends or whatever. And, you know, she's the one that introduced me to the meth. And, you know, my parents always said, oh, it's her fault. And, you know, she introduced you. It wasn't her fault.
Yeah, I mean, if I saw that, I wouldn't say, let me try that.
Yeah, and it wasn't her fault. And but I'll tell you, you know, I don't regret it. You know,
wow,
I don't regret it because it led me to being a stand-up comedian. You know, I got sober, I got clean. You know, I got arrested for possession of a controlled substance, and I went to court and. To be honest with you, I didn't really even want to get clean, but I went to court and they gave me the option of rehab or jail, and I chose rehab, and I checked myself into rehab on February 13th of 2007. So Valentine's Day, I just celebrated 14 years clean and sober.
That's fantastic. Mm-hmm. That is so exciting. But how many rehabs did you have to go to get to that point?
I went to one when I was 19 and then this one. In 2000.
Oh, wow.
So
you're a success story then.
Yeah.
I mean, you are.
Yeah. So there were no well, if you count, I went to rehab when I was 19, so I guess I relapsed from 19 till when I got.
But what was the 19 thing? Was it alcohol?
Cocaine.
Oh, I see. But you kept drinking though, no worries.
Yeah, so I ended up, you know, I got sober like 6 months when I was 19. I went to rehab and recovery meetings and stuff like that. But, you know, I ended up going to college and playing 4 years of college baseball and going to work for CBS, and I was able to maintain my ability to take care of responsibilities for a long time.
But how much alcohol are you talking, like a day? Were you drinking during the day, like at work?
No, weekends I drank, but I smoked pot every day. But, you know, I was very successful. So, and then I do drugs on weekends and stuff, but I was all, you know, there was little consequences.
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of people do that every day, and, nothing, no problems. Or like you said, they maintain, of course, that's why there's so much alcohol in the grocery store. I mean, obviously, but it's, you have like a gene in you or something.
Correct.
Because that meth wasn't that big of a stretch. You were just like, yeah, sure, I'll try it. And then when you do try something that strong, I mean, I guess it's like fentanyl or mm-hmm. heroin. It's like, how could anybody compete with that?
Yeah. Yeah. I think, that's the question. Is it, can you do enough drugs or drink enough alcohol to become an addict or an alcoholic? Or is it a gene, or you inherit, and I can tell you for me, it was, I was born with it, so I was born with something different in my pleasure center, that when I do something that makes me feel good, I abuse it. And my sister's not, my sister was wondering, she was asking me advice for a friend that was smoking, her son was smoking a lot of pot. And I said, I don't know what to tell you, but I said, Kelly, could you smoke enough pot to become a drug addict? And she's like, absolutely not. Right. I'm like, okay. So,
yeah, don't worry about it.
Yeah, but it turned out to be the greatest thing. And it actually led me to becoming a stand-up comedian.
Yeah. So how did that happen? Because you've been doing stand-up for a long time, haven't you?
8 years.
Oh, it's not that long then. No. Not that long at all. No. Okay. So how did it? Because you just felt like, I hit rock bottom. I don't care anymore. You can't hurt me. Rejection means nothing. Yeah. I'm going up. Was it sort of like that?
So no. So what happened was
that's most comics.
Yeah, no. So what happened was, I like we talked about before, I was a theater actor and doing a bunch of shorts and voiceovers and stuff in the past. And I used to go to the Comedy Store and watch comedians. Never in a million years did it ever cross my mind to do stand-up, because I didn't think I was funny enough, and I didn't think that I could write comedy. Never crossed my mind. But I would watch all these great comedians and stuff. And when I got sober, I was at a recovery meeting. And so a friend of mine introduced me to this guy, Jimmy. And he introduced me to Jimmy. And Jimmy was new in recovery. And he was about 30 days off cocaine and opiates. And he introduced me to this guy. And my friend says to me, hey, will you give him a ride home after the recovery meeting? And so what I thought in my head was, why don't you fucking give him a ride home? That's what I thought. Excuse my French, are we allowed to swear? But
it's okay.
Yeah, I thought, why don't you give him a ride home? Why are you asking me? But I have been changed now. I say yes to the world, to the universe, because I never know when that opportunity, my life, anyway. So I give this guy, Jimmy, a ride home. And I ask him, I'm like, do you have a car? Do you need help getting to meetings? And he says, I don't have a car. So I started picking him up, taking him to recovery meetings. And we would go to Starbucks. Whenever we went to a meeting, he would never order anything. So I asked him, I said, are you broke? And he's like, yeah, I'm broke. And so I go, do you have groceries at home? And he's like, no, I don't have any. So I go, fine, I'll take you grocery shopping. And I go, where do you want to go grocery shopping? And he took me to Whole Foods.
That's so funny. He didn't take it to Albertsons or Vons. He went right for the organic stuff. Yeah. And then your bill, if it's a cart of food, oh my gosh, that's hundreds.
Yeah, it was like you got like a little basket of food for like $100. I'm like, but you know what? I'm like, fine, whatever, and we.
That is so kind. Yeah. That's so kind.
And so we became friends, and then it turns out he was a comedian. And he invited me to go see one of his shows at the Comedy Store. It's like one of the side shows at the Comedy Store.
Sure.
So I go see him, and I'll tell you, like almost all the comedians were terrible, just terrible.
That's the worst. Oh, that's so horrible.
Just terrible. No right to be on the Comedy Store stage. And so,
but you were in the belly room, right?
We were in the original room.
Really?
Yeah.
That should be quality, but okay.
It was in the OR, and it was I don't want to say her name, but. Anyway, you probably know who she is, but just the worst show ever. But and after the show, I said to Jimmy, I go, dude, I can tell drug stories and be as funny as half of these guys. Just joking, and because I had spoken, I do recovery speaking inside the LA corrections, all the jails, and so I'm like, I could tell drug stories and be as funny as half of these guys. And he says to me, he goes, "Do you want to try it?" And I'm like, okay. And so he put me up on a bringer show, like a week later. And I go up there and I tell some drug stories. And then I wrap it up with this feel-good recovery message. I get high fives on the way down. It was probably very terrible, as we all are at the beginning. And I get all these high fives. And the host comes back up. And a guy named Quincy Weekly comes back on the stage. He's hosting the show. And he says, oh, my God. He goes, I didn't know we were at an AA meeting. And everybody started laughing, and I've been doing it ever since. And
wow, that's so funny. So you sort of fell into that too.
Yeah. And so fast forward, I've been grinding away for 8 years. And so now I get to perform with some of the biggest comedians in the world.
And Jimmy Shin is a star.
Yeah, Jimmy Shin is doing great. So Friday night we had a show with Bill Burr and Daryl. I'm good friends with Daryl Hammond. I opened for him from Saturday Night Live.
Fabulous.
And I did a show with them on Friday night. Then Daryl and I drove down to the Bay Area and met Jimmy there. We did a show in the Bay Area on Saturday. But I want to tell you one thing that really I had a moment of clarity, a spiritual awakening. And I was in the main room at the Comedy Store. And that's a few years ago. And I was a decent comedian, I guess, but not as, anyway. But I'm doing a show at the most famous comedy club in the world on the most famous stage where Richard Pryor, Eddie Murphy, all the greats walked out that curtain in the main room. And I'm back. I host a show. I do my set. I do okay. And I'm sitting behind the curtain with Bill Burr.
Yeah.
And he's on his phone and we're just chatting. And I'm about to go on the stage and introduce one of my favorite comedians. And I just remember looking at Bill Burr and I just remember thinking like, oh my God. Like, how did this happen?
Mm-hmm.
How did this happen? And I had a moment of clarity, and it was, and I realized it was from helping another human being. And it was all, because I gave a newcomer a ride home that night. What if I was selfish? What if I was self-centered that night? What if I said no to giving Jimmy a ride home and I was worried about myself? My whole life changed from helping another human being. I wouldn't be a comedian today if I didn't give that guy a ride home, to Jimmy a ride home.
Yeah.
And two of my favorite quotes are, Danny Trejo does a lot of public speaking. He has one of my favorite quotes. Everything good in my life has come as a direct result of helping another human being. And then my other favorite quote is by Jackie Robinson, which is, a life is unimportant except for the impact it has on others.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. That's good stuff, man. That is good stuff.
And
so where do you live right now, Greg?
So I just moved. I lived near the Grove. I just moved in November to Studio City, North Hollywood area.
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah. Great area.
Yeah,
really good. I did the Comedy Chateau a couple weeks ago, and that's a nice new cool club. Have you done it?
Yeah, I did it with Daryl.
Oh, great.
No, yeah. And then Daryl and I are doing it on Saturday also. How did you like it?
Oh, I love it. Are you kidding? It's this outdoor cafe in North Hollywood. And, there's at least 150 people there. I mean, it was a good amount of people.
Yeah.
It was crowded.
How'd you do?
And I did good. I stayed in there for sure. So that was good. But yeah, there was somebody else who did the show and had a terrible set and ended up like crying and stuff. And that's like, as a comedian, that's like, so then all the other comedians go over and are like, it's okay. It doesn't matter. Fuck everybody, but she was devastated and it's tough, very difficult.
I have so much respect for any stand-up comedian that's made it through their first 2 years because it is brutal.
Well, one of the things, though, that I'll be just between comic to comic, I'll tell you, she made a mistake. She was supposed to be up, then me, and then Willie Mack. You know Willie Mack, right?
Love Willie Mack.
Yeah, he's a very good comedian and he's loved by all. Instead, for some reason, I'm in the bathroom and there's a knock on the door and it says, "Is this Christine Blackburn?" And I go, "Yeah." And they go, "You're going up next. This other person has changed slots." And I'm like, "Okay." So I jump out and I get on stage and I do well. Now following me, she doesn't go. Willie Mack goes. Right?
Yeah.
And then now she goes. And I said to my boyfriend, I said, "This is a mistake. She shouldn't have tried to follow Willie Mack." And that's exactly what happened because he kills and she can't compete because he killed. And so no matter really what she did, it's going to kind of be a letdown because it's just really hard to compete with people that good.
Talk about following people. I did a show Friday night. So it was supposed to go me, then Jimmy, then Bill Burr, right?
Right.
But Bill Burr had a set at the Comedy Store. So he said, "Hey, I need to go up." So Jimmy says, "You got to follow Bill Burr." And I'm like, "Oh, God, are you kidding?" I'm like, "Seriously? You're putting me up to Bill Burr?" He's like, "Dude, somebody's got to fall on the sword, dude." And, he goes, "You want me to do it?" And I'm like, No, I'll do it. So I'm like freaking out. And so Bill Burr goes and just murders it, right?
Of course.
And I have to go up after, but the host, we were filming my set. So the host had to do a joke and the joke bombed. And then Daryl Hammond's like my mentor. And he's like, "Okay, she took the knife. She took the bullet. Just go up there, acknowledge Bill Burr and go into your set." So I did it. And I had like one of the best sets I've ever had. And so,
that's so good.
So I followed Bill Burr and killed. And so I'm like, wow, man, that was incredible.
Did you start with, your pretty much the strongest joke you have or something right off the bat?
I did my best written joke. My best joke is the one I close with. But I want to tell you, can I tell you one quick story? Of
course.
So getting back to the Meth, right? So about a year ago, I get a call, Joe Manganiello, he's married to Sofia Vergara. He was in True Blood. He at one point was the number one bachelor in Hollywood. It just, anyway, he's
a really handsome guy. Yeah. Married to Sofia Vergara.
Yeah. Anyway, so he calls me up. I'm friends with him. He calls me up about a year ago and he says, "Hey," he goes, "I got a weird question for you." And I'm like, "Okay." And he goes, "Listen, I know you used to do a lot of crystal meth." And he goes, I'm the lead in a film and I'm doing crystal meth. And I wonder if you would come on set and work with me.
That is so cool.
I'm like, "Are you kidding?" I'm like, "Okay, sure." So I go on set with him and he's shooting a scene where he snorts crystal meth and then he kills all these drug dealers. He goes nuts and kills all these drug dealers. So he's snorting the meth. I'm standing with the director. He's doing the scene and then they yell cut. And then he comes walking right over to me. He's like a superhero that does meth. He comes right over to me and he's like, "How's that?" And I'm like, "It was great." So I'm giving him instruction on how to use crystal meth in his film, right?
That is so cool. What a Hollywood moment.
Yeah. So about 6 months after that, he calls me up this last year and he's like, hey, you want to go to the movie premiere with me? So it's at a drive-in theater because of COVID. So I go with him. We drive down. They do the movie premiere, and it's, this big deal and stuff. And he's doing all these interviews. So I'm sitting shotgun in his SUV, watching him on screen as a lead in this film, snorting meth that I coached him how to do. And I'm like, this is fucking bizarre, right? And only in 2020.
Absolutely surreal.
And then after that, he goes on Conan, and he tells the story how he has a meth coach and how he had a meth coach on set working with him. And I'm like, this is freaking nuts. So Friday night, he's at the show. I follow Bill Burr. I do the meth coach story, which is part of my act now. And then I call him up and stand up, and I do this whole meth story. And it all tied back to, so that's why I say that crystal meth is the best thing that ever happened to me, because one, it turned me into a comedian, and it's given me all these opportunities. And listen, it's not, becoming a drug addict has been a gift. It's been a gift because
I wonder, I just wonder, so it's not becoming a drug addict. It's because of the lessons I learned, and I got that second chance, like your podcast, and I got that opportunity to really see what was being done. You got a chance to almost have an out of body experience and look at the situation. So you did put effort in because you went to rehab.
Yeah.
I mean, in other words, you worked for the clarity you got. That's all.
Correct. So I was given grace, and, listen, I'm not a religious person. I'm a very spiritual person. I meditate twice a day. I pray and stuff, but I'm not a religious person. But there's been all these little coincidences that have happened in my life that have shown me without a doubt that there's some force of nature, some higher power working in my life. If I put all the things down on paper, all these little coincidences and things that have pointed me in the direction, it's physically impossible for there not to be something working in my life.
That almost makes me want to cry. I am so happy for you, man. Really. It's so inspirational. It truly is. And I believe that. I believe that things happen for a reason. Yeah, I believe that.
There's something. I sometimes, it kind of sounds kind of bizarre, but it's like I feel like I'm in the Matrix. It's like all these things and weird coincidences, and that, there's something. It's like I just can't quite put my finger on what it is, but there's something going on,
And the good news is you're flowing with it. You're going with the water. You're moving along with it. You're accepting it and being grateful and giving back.
Yeah. And it's just like your story with cancer, right? I mean, I've never had that, so I can't, know what your experience was like. But I would imagine, all of a sudden you're facing death, and it makes you realize what's important in life. And I'm sure you've used your gift of overcoming cancer to help other people that came behind you.
Yeah, I think so. No, I know I have. Yeah. All right. Listen, man, really happy to meet you, Greg Baldwin. Thank you so much for coming on the show. This has been super interesting. Really. Thank you.
I appreciate it. And
I hope I see you at the clubs.
Yeah. Yes.
Maybe I'll follow you. Maybe you'll follow me. Nobody knows.
Yeah. No, it's awesome. I can guarantee you we're going to work together.
That's right. And listen, no matter what happens, don't cry. Come on.
Yeah.
All right, you guys, find out more about Greg Baldwin over at his website, realgregbaldwin.com, and also follow him on Twitter at realgregbaldwin.
And Instagram. That's what I use the most. Instagram is real Greg Baldwin.
Oh, that's great. I'm glad you got at real Greg Baldwin across the board. I don't use Instagram as much. I do, but not Twitter. Twitter's my thing because I like the words. I like the laugh. I don't know. I'm trying to not do as much social media in general. I'm trying to kind of step back, just do what I have to do. And because as you know, it's a time suck, right? I mean, wow.
No, but it really is. It's,
I know.
But you would spend all this time trying to gain followers and all this stuff. But, I'm not in love with that aspect of media. I'm in love with the fact of bringing laughter and joy to people from telling my stories.
Right, and the thing is, social media, you can do that in an interesting way, but it doesn't. If it's under pressure, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
But there. Put that on the refrigerator. If you're under pressure, you're doing it wrong. All right, you guys, one more time on behalf of the fabulous Greg Baldwin, thank you again so much.
Thank you so much. That was, you know what? That was such an amazing experience.
Oh, great. Good. All right, you guys, my name is Christine Blackburn. You're my 674th guest. Now I fuck up.
You could leave it. You got to leave this. This is what people want to hear. This is the goal.
One more time on behalf of the very funny Greg Baldwin. My name is Christine Blackburn. Make it a story-worthy week.
Thanks for joining us on the Storyworthy Podcast. We'll be back next week with all new stories. Subscribe to Storyworthy on iTunes and visit the Storyworthy website at storyworthypodcast.com.
Membership fees apply after free trial. Cancel anytime.
Hi, it's Carl Deichler, CEO of Beachbody, and I'm giving away 10,000 free memberships a week to try our amazing Beachbody fitness and nutrition programs. Pick any program and just follow it step by step, like our 21-Day Fix program or the Ab Shredding Muscle Burns Fat program. Plus, there's free support in personalized fitness groups with our community of over 2 million members. Now is the time, so don't wait. Go to beachbody.com to claim your free membership and start feeling great.
Sure, we have 30 seconds to tell you that drivers who switch to Progressive could save big. But then what? Well, we could try to fill the remaining time with awkward pauses. It's often done for comedic effect. Is it working? I can't tell if this is funny. Maybe this is so bad it's funny. Wow, we really peaked at the save big when you switched to Progressive part. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.